is now 5 o'clock, and I am calling this meeting to order. And I want to say, thank you all for being here today. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second. That's wonderful. Moved by Mr. Hester, and second by Dr. Bibb. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposers? No? Okay, so the agenda has been approved. At this time, we will hear from Mr. Eric Bush, the budget workshop session number 1. Mr. Bush?
All right, thank you, President Johnson, and welcome board members, Superintendent Dr. Sims. I'm going to let Dr. Sims walk us through the first couple of slides here, mission and vision, and the priorities for this session.
Thank you, Mr. Bush, and once again, good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. Next slide. As we begin our first budget work session, we want to always ground ourselves in the mission and vision that drives our work on a daily basis. We maximize student achievement and social emotional well-being by using the resources at our disposal, human and otherwise, building a sense of community for all of our students, and learning environments that are safe and equitable. Further, we want to ensure the use of these resources such that they lead to empowered students in every way possible on their way to living meaningful adult lives. Our 3 goal areas of student achievement, staff effectiveness, and stakeholder engagement continue to guide our decisions daily, supported by guiding principles designed to promote our core learner outcomes. We recognize the importance of investing in highly engaging and rigorous experiences that lead to enlightenment on the part of our students as they choose meaningful pathways to success, one or more of the 4 listed. Further, we know full well the importance of engaging all stakeholders and strengthening the effectiveness of our staff in order to maximize student achievement. This is our map to more victory and a key component of our district's Built for Bibb strategic plan. Today's presentation will provide an initial financial outlook to include calculations that impact the FY26 budget. This budget process will include up-to-date information on enrollment projections, staffing allocations, salary and related data, operational costs, and other estimated revenue in order to provide a clear path for meaningful questions and better understanding. As we engage, it will be important to walk away with understanding the impact of state mandates, inflation, and ongoing challenges with recruitment and retention on our decision-making. The balance between increasing revenues and or reducing expenditures continues to be a forefront topic as we strive to offer the most advantageous recommendations while maintaining a primary focus on the needs of our students. As shared before with you, our preliminary budget priorities account for the continued need to recruit and retain the best and brightest for our students, to account for the diverse literacy needs of our students, to strengthen overall attendance with an emphasis on shifting the narrative for chronically absent families, and to continue building strong leaders and teachers in all buildings using a strong coaching and feedback cycle for optimal educator performance. With that said, I will now turn it over to our Chief Financial Officer, Eric Bush, to carry us through the remainder of this work session.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. We have a very thorough slideshow for you today that includes outtakes from the governor's budget, some salary slides, and various other information that'll help us get through this work session. Some of it I will just go over lightly. Some of it I'm going to stop and go over in detail when we get to the numbers. The first slides here show the highlights from the governor's budget for FY26. These numbers represent the numbers for the state of Georgia, not just Bibb County School District. The impacts from the governor's budget that's going to directly impact us, the main ones are going to be dealing with the state health insurance benefit, teacher retirement, and the decrease from our equalization grant. The certified state health insurance has been in a phase-in period that we've known about for about 3 years. That would push the price of health insurance per employee up to $22,620. That final stage for the certified staff, it completes this year, and it raises the cost for them $1,500 per person. Most of the state certified health insurance is covered by QBE revenue. We do cover some staff that we are not funded for. The classified health insurance, though, although some of the positions are funded, most of those are paid for by the local tax base. That health insurance this year went up $5,970 per person alone. So that was a major cost increase for us this year. Next, looking at this teacher retirement system increases, that has gone up 5.4% from a 20.78% contribution rate to a 21.91% contribution rate. And next is the technology expenses. We're budgeting $3 million as we move to our next set of devices for the one-to-one program that was implemented in 2020. That's about 5 years old. We're looking to refresh those devices for our students at a cost of around $3 million per year for 4 years. And then you'll see this throughout the presentation as inflationary costs continue to affect the district. Some assumptions for preparing this year's budget is we were able to increase QBE revenue by looking at our FTE counts a little closer and documenting every student's need as properly as we can. That's yielded about a $2.1 million increase in QBE revenue. The increases that I mentioned earlier for the certified state health do pass through from the state. That increases our revenue by $2.4 million. I'm not assuming any tax digest increases as of yet, but we are, this says an estimate at 3% increase, but that should be 2% as you'll see in the slides moving forward. And then we will be, all these situations maintain the millage rate at 14.674 mills. And as we mentioned earlier, the preliminary numbers suggest that we're gonna lose $9.12 million in our equalization grant. That is pretty much final, but it will not be completely final until the governor signs the budget. Next, to get started in our whole budget process, after we know those assumptions, is to start looking at our enrollment for this coming year. Our enrollment is holding very steady, around 21,500. I'm showing 181 student increase from 2025, which is great. We're moving in the right direction, but it's still not a leap and bound. So once we have enrollment projections by grade, we move into what's called staffing allocations. We base those staffing allocations off a formula you see here and a set of criteria depending on how many students are in each building and how many are allotted for each classroom and at each grade level. So I won't go into all the detail here, but this is here for your review. Once we apply all the enrollment data to those staffing allocations, we end up with these total staffing allocation sheets, which are the next 3 pages. Going through all the numbers this year, we are seeing that we need an additional 12.75 teachers for those extra students. That is a combination, like I talked about the FTE counts, we had increases in EIP program and REP programs. So that does include some increases in those areas alone to support those programs. Next, we spend a lot of time determining operational requirements and requests from other departments around the district. We gather all of that information and start laying it out for the budget process. As well as all the positions we mentioned, we're going to make sure we understand salary and benefit costs too. As you know, and I talked about earlier, as health insurance increases, TRS increases, we got to calculate what that's going to cost the district. We also calculate the step increases in this scenario. So if you have 15 years of service and I'm going to 16 years of service, that's a step that's in our salary schedule. We'll calculate the people that are moving steps this year as well. Once that's all completed, we start the line item cost by school. Using these sheets right here, the next 3 or 4 pages will show by school enrollment projections, the capacity. It'll also show salary benefits, total salary benefits, operational costs, which leads us to total expenditures. On the far right, you'll see a column that says cost per student, which is averaging around $10,864 for elementary school. Comes down a little bit for middle and high school at around $9,400 per student. The next couple slides are all of our operational departments and the salary and benefits associated with those departments. This is how we develop our bottom line general fund budget, our salary, benefits, and operations. Which is around $289 million this year. Next, I was just gonna put a couple slides in here about our health insurance costs and what that's looked like over time. These unfunded mandates from the state have gone from $10,600,000 to $21.2 million since 2022, representing a 99.47% increase in health insurance costs for the district. There's a small line right under that 21,240 total that says 5.520. That is the increase for the 2026 year alone. Just to point that out. The next slide shows various other benefits that we have: Social Security, Medicare, teachers' retirement, state health, unemployment, and workers' compensation benefit increases this year. So once we know all of our expenditures, we're going to start looking at our revenue. This year we're budgeting $265.1 million of revenue, which is a net decrease of $3.7 million. Some things to note in here on the right side is just taking the differences from 2025 to 2026 are a 1.5 increase in tax revenue. Investment earnings, I've decreased that just a hair because interest rates have been kind of volatile and moving down. And as we come out of these COVID years, we're gonna have less cash to operate with, so those investment returns may be less. We do have an increase in indirect costs due to our additional grants that we're running right now. That includes the regular grants include, of course, our federal programs like Title I, after school program, school food nutrition, but we have some additional grants right now, such as the EPA grant, that will also give some indirect costs back to the district. I have $1 million in here from the school speed zone cameras from the Bibb County that has been mentioned recently. And we also have, as you see, the QBE changes that we've talked about previously, $2.1 million for increase in FTE revenue, and then the reduction of equalization of $9.1 million. The next slide shows the change in equalization grant over time. We think this is important because of the volatility of this grant awarded from the state. Just in 2023, we received $4.4 million. That increased to $23 million in 2025, and now it's going back down to $14 million. It plays a vital role in supporting the district, but it's also a challenge when it's just when it ebbs and flows like it does. The next couple slides are the general fund preliminary budget. This is assuming no salary increases and just the items I've talked about previously. And we start with a beginning fund balance of $67,791,196. Add in the revenues of $265 million, and then subtract off the salary and benefits, which leaves us with a deficit, our net deficit of $24.5 million currently for the 2026 preliminary budget. That leaves us with a fund balance to expense ratio of 14.9%, which is in the toleration of the state requirements. As a reminder, those are a minimum of 8%, maximum of 15%. Many districts exercise the right to go a little bit over that to be healthy. But if we were to follow this plan in FY '26, we would land on about a 14.9% ratio there. The next couple of slides are the same information you saw on the previous slide, except they give some scenarios that we wanted to do salary increases for all staff. So there's a 2% salary increase scenario, 3%, 4%. And this is important to look at because you can see how that trends for each option. I'm also providing a scenario of what a mill would do. 1 mill of taxes is worth $5.9 million. And this is a scenario for each of those salary increase options, but also adding 1 mill to all those. The next couple slides just give you more data to go off the same numbers we just saw. And it projects out those scenarios over the next 5 years, from 2026 to 2030. The first slide I'm showing here is assuming no salary increases, no millage rate increases. It starts with that $24.5 million deficit, and if we were just to increase inflation 1% for revenue and expenses going out to 2030, the result is depicted here. Your deficit would remain somewhat stable, but you can see your fund balance to expense ratio drops under 8% in the 2027 year. The next slide adds in a 3% salary increase, if that was an option this year, and gives the results for those numbers. So you can see pretty quickly that FY '26 comes down to a 13.2% fund balance to expense ratio and drops all the way to 3 in 2027 and then negative after that. So the next steps in these processes are what we're doing right now. We're going to have a couple board work sessions. Share with you the concerns that we have. This page is some concerns that are actually continuations from the previous year. So we've been seeing this for a while, so our district continues to fall behind certified and classified salary schedules. The update to that is we did make a pretty nice salary change last year that addressed some of these issues. The problem with that is what will the counties do in FY '26 that we're unable to do, and how far can we go to keep pace with our competing counties. The next is we've had classified salary studies for some years now. We still lag behind in that area. It would cost around $5 million compared to other comparatively sized districts to make us competitive in that field too. So that continues to be a challenge on the classified employee side. We've also had a history of rolling back the millage rate. It prevents us from receiving increased tax revenue, and because of the equalization grant this year, has put us in kind of a place with a larger deficit than we're used to. Some of the solutions there have been discussed this year. You know, is it the right time to consolidate? Will we need to look at reducing some programs, even staff in some instances? The next is how will we fund the desired changes for our new strategic plan? And the same answer is there. You can only increase revenue or decrease expenses. And the last bullet point here is, can we continue to operate small neighborhood schools with the increasing costs and the inability to hire and maintain quality staff for those schools? Will the community understand the need to do this? And that is something that will be brought before you this Thursday as we work through that year-long process to study those options. I won't go through every one of these in detail, but the next several slides is a 2024 comparison to the 2025 year that we're currently in, and how the Bibb County salaries increased based on the raises we implemented in 2025. And you'll see the green bar on these goes from a lower to a higher status as compared to the other districts, which is a move in the right direction. We've detailed these out for master's, or bachelor's degree employees, master's degrees, doctorates. We've also looked at administrative salaries on one of the slides toward the back, where we still are kind of in the mid-range for administrative salaries, kind of the mid-lower range on those. And when I say administrative salaries, we're talking about administrators in the class or in school buildings. These are principals and assistant principals. Excuse me. Next, we'll look at our millage rate history as we move through the presentation. This is a slide showing all the way back from 2013 what the millage rate has done. It's steadily decreased. And not just that it's decreased, what kind of revenue have we lost, or how much have we created through levy and taxes? Last year was the most marketable one, other than 2016, where we maintained the millage rate, and that increased our revenue $4.5 million, which was a 5.5% increase in tax levy. I've also included several slides that compare surrounding districts in the state on how their millage rates look. So on the far left, you would see FTEs by QBE. This is the student counts per the FTE schedules that the state puts out for each of these districts. And it's comparing 2020 to 2025. I wanted to get a 5-year comparison here. The tax digest runs on a calendar year, so that's why it says 2019 to 2024 there. Still a 5-year comparison of the same funding cycle for the schools. And I've highlighted Bibb County in the bottom there just to give you an example of the changes that have happened in comparison to our other counties. So that leads us to our next steps in this process. Wanted to hear and get your questions and feedback in preparation for our work session number 2 and subsequent tentative adoption in June. And then following those meetings, pending tax digest information, we will go straight into the millage rate discussions as soon as that information is given to us. The calendar for that series of events is posted on the screen here and in the back of the handout. The next meeting will be May 5th, followed by May 14th, tentative adoption. And that would give us time to advertise and have public hearings before the final adoption in June. And that is the conclusion of my presentation today.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Board members, you've heard the report. Did you have any questions for Mr. Bush concerning work session number 1? All right, Bibb.
Thank you, Mr. Bush, for this presentation. And my question is, has any projections been given as to how the governor's school choice initiative may impact what money we get?
We haven't done any projections inside yet because we don't have any numbers to work off from yet. So I don't know how many students have accepted it, where they're going, and how many we would lose. And until we get that data, we'll be on it when we get it, but it's not available yet.
Yeah, that's why I was asking,
Yes.
any projections on it. Sometimes you can find out from a school, principal at that school would know what parents are thinking about doing that and try to, find out how many students may be, going somewhere else and how that would impact us, but if you'll have no projections, then the question is, okay.
Yes, sir.
Are there other questions? Mr. Freeman?
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Bush, and I kind of want to piggyback on Dr. Fickman. Do we have an idea, as far as that same program, the school choice initiative, as to how many positions in Bibb County would be funded by that? Not how many parents are looking to move, but do we know how much money the state's actually gonna allocate to schools from Bibb County?
No, I do not know that.
Okay, I thought that might help with those projections.
I think the application process determines that. There's 22,000 spots available, so as those are divvied up and awarded throughout the state, we would get more information, but I'm not sure if they do it.
How that's gonna be done.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they do it
Thank you.
per district.
Are there other questions? Mr. Morrison?
All right, so Mr. Bush, what I'm hearing is some of the things that are increasing our expenses are a reduction of 9.1 million in equalization and roughly about 5 million something for increased benefits for employees, health benefits. Is that about right?
It's about 80. So TRS increase was 1.5 million, 5.5 for, health insurance, and then those are our mandated costs. Our step increases internally are right at $1 million as well, so that's about $8 million.
So 17 between those two.
Yes, sir.
That's good. One of the things I've been reading is there's concern about what federal funding may or may not be available for schools. Do we have any information about that?
I do not.
Is it a situation where we might have to look at a supplemental budget depending on what happens related to federal funding?
We could get involved with that if we have contracts for those people already, and that money was pulled, during the mid-year. It would leave us in a situation where we would have to have some kind of supplement or an amendment done for general funds to pick this up.
Generally, what programs are we talking about that federal funds would, like a better way of putting fund?
Say that one more time.
So,
Which programs would
which
be affected by
programs are
this?
federal, yes, but generally speaking, I sort of thought Dr. Rogers might stand up at some point. Related to that.
Title I, which is one of the largest, IDEA as well, and depending on the extent, it could also, include food nutrition.
And our GNAS program is federally funded too. And we also have those one-time grants that we've received from the mental health program that supports several, staff there. The EPA grant we've been awarded to give us, several electronic buses and get a program off the ground for that, as well as the school-based mental health clinics, which are smaller grants to get those up and running. I don't think that would affect us too much, but yeah, there's several of them that we accept.
You're up too, right?
You're up.
And federal funding is about, what, 10% of our revenue or somewhere in that range?
I think it's around 20.
20, okay. If you could, turn to slide, let me find it here, I'm sorry. 25. Okay, and so it's the slide with the middle schools, up at the top. And it's middle school, the Georgia Department of Education base middle school size is 624 students. That's the magic number for middle school,
Yes, sir.
like 450 is for elementary school. Okay, and it says those in red are under the base size. And I see two of them in red are Miller and Appling, but they're over 624. So those
I think
not.
that's just a color difference. Yeah, I think we just didn't update that correctly.
Okay, all right, well, I mean, that's good, I'm glad they're over the number. All right, I think that's all I've got right now, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I do have a
Dr. Garrett.
comment. I have a comment. As you're looking over here at the cost per student for each school, please know that we don't spend $72,364.14 on 40 pre-K children. That's, just pre-K money, right? Is that
Right.
pre-K money?
So we have, 40 slots that are
Right.
funded through PBE, but the rest of Northwoods is funded through
Especially
CGL.
preschool,
Yeah,
yeah.
pre-K program.
Oh, yeah, those would be the kindergarten kids, right?
That's correct.
Yes, gotcha, okay, yeah, they don't need that much.
Yeah. We've always had trouble with that slide.
Yeah, I know that. We have trouble funding that school too, pass, so that's good thing.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Bibb, second by Dr.